through trade added Sophie Cunningham, a player that, I would say a 3-and-D type player who has, been to the finals, so has that playoff experience. She's also just tough. She's mentally tough.
Just a short while ago, Indiana was the underdog, a team with flashes of brilliance but an identity that was still forming. The previous season saw them exit in the first round of the playoffs. There were hopeful whispers about building around emerging talents, most notably the prodigious Caitlin Clark.
She's physically tough. She brings an edge to them. And then last but not least, they added Aaliyah Boston, which really I think is the one that for most people took it to another level. So now you're like, oh, they're a contender.
Clark, who had already made waves by shattering records and dazzling on the court, was seen as the spark for a team in the process of reinventing itself. Yet the Fever's transformation wasn't solely about Clark. It was about assembling a supporting cast that could shoulder the immense responsibility of competing at the highest level.
Which I think everyone agrees right now has gone from, a team that made the playoffs last year, lost in the first round. They were building all these young pieces, of course, Caitlin Clark, to now an immediate contender with all the moves that they
Enter Sue Bird. Now, if you're familiar with the annals of basketball history, you know that Sue Bird isn't just any retired player throwing hot takes for social media clout. She's a 4-time NBA champion, a 5-time Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most cerebral basketball minds ever to grace the hardwood. When Sue looked at the Fever's burgeoning roster and all the roster moves they had pulled off, she wasn't simply being polite. In her characteristically blunt fashion, she took one look at the hype surrounding Indiana's title aspirations and said, "Hold up, let's pump the brakes." But make no mistake, this wasn't a dismissal. Rather, it was a call for measured optimism, a reminder that while the team's star, Caitlin Clark, is an undeniable talent, rings aren't won on flashy Twitter posts or viral TikTok dances.
I think Natasha Howard certainly stands out. I loved playing with Tosh.
But you cannot say enough about
I cannot say enough about Tosh. I really enjoyed playing with her. I think she really...
Sue's commentary went beyond surface-level praise. She pointed out that while Clark's skills are indeed generational, the road to a championship is paved with more than just individual brilliance. Rings aren't won by social media clout, she stressed, drawing attention to the need for seasoned, battle-tested components in a team. And what better way to solidify a contender's status than to add pieces that bring both experience and grit? In that spirit, Indiana Fever made several key moves that have shifted the narrative entirely. First, let's talk about the personnel moves that have caught everyone's eye. The Fever didn't just bet on raw talent, they methodically retooled their roster. They added Sophie Cunningham, a player known for her 3-and-D prowess and championship pedigree. Cunningham, with her blend of toughness and mental fortitude, has a resume that includes finals appearances.
Because a lot of what she does doesn't show up in the box score, but she just is always in the right place at the right time. And a player like that, I think, complements what Indiana is built.
Then there's Natasha Howard, a player whose defensive presence and hard-nosed style on the court have made her a standout. Many fans recall her time with the Fever fondly. She was the spark that often set the tone for games, playing a role that sometimes doesn't even show up in the box score. And then perhaps the move that most electrified the fan base, the acquisition of veteran Aaliyah Boston. With Bonner on board, the Fever suddenly had an element that many thought was the missing link, a seasoned competitor whose very presence on the court sends shivers down the spines of opponents. Now, if you're wondering why these moves are so significant, consider this. Indiana is no longer simply relying on the raw talent of Caitlin Clark. They've meticulously assembled a squad where every piece fits into a broader blueprint designed for success. The additions of Cunningham, Howard, and Bonner aren't random. They are calculated moves that complement Clark's unique skill set and, importantly, reduce the pressure on her to carry the entire team.
A BA, and she's someone who obviously is a part owner in the Seattle Storm. So hyping up another team is a bit of a conflict of interest, if we're being honest.
This multifaceted approach is exactly what distinguishes a contender from a team with only potential. In essence, Indiana's front office has been busy not just constructing a roster, but crafting an entire system where talent, experience, and leadership are seamlessly interwoven. And let's not forget the coaching situation. Stephanie White, who recently took the helm in Indiana after a successful stint with Connecticut, is the linchpin in this transformation. White isn't just any coach. She's a leader who has already experienced the highs and lows of playoff basketball. Her understanding of the game and her ability to manage expectations, especially when blending youth with experience, are critical for a team that is evolving so rapidly.
Against the champions that have been added to this point.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what everybody talked about when we were in the playoffs last year of, we really didn't have much experience at all playing in playoff games. I don't know what the exact...
The presence of a coach who has been through championship battles ensures that the locker room isn't just a collection of talented players, but a unified unit driven by a shared goal: winning a championship and hanging another banner in the Fever's storied field house. Sue Bird's analysis is not merely a fan's observation. It's a crystallization of what many insiders already believe. When she stated that the Indiana Fever are real title contenders, she wasn't relying on hyperbole. Bird's insight comes from years of playing against and alongside legends, and her confidence in Indiana's blueprint is a reflection of a deep understanding of what it takes to succeed at the highest level. Let's break this down further. Consider the role of Caitlin Clark. More than just a scoring machine, Clark is the catalyst who elevates everyone around her. Every time she steps on the court, the energy shifts. Opponents scramble to adjust their defensive schemes, knowing that leaving her one-on-one can lead to a highlight reel moment. But her influence extends beyond statistics and highlight reels. Clark's poise under pressure, her ability to perform in front of raucous crowds, and her leadership in crunch time make her a player whose impact is felt long after the final buzzer. And while some have tried to downplay her significance by arguing that championships require a super team built around her, the reality is that the Fever are constructing that very super team piece by piece.
Number was, but we really lacked in that area. So just adding pieces of, players that have been in this league, they know what it takes to win, they know what it takes to get to the finals, they know what it takes to win championships. I think it's exactly.
And what about the rest of the roster? Let's delve into the supporting cast that now surrounds Clark. Natasha Howard brings a tenacity that is as much about defense as it is about leadership. Her ability to lock down opposing scorers and disrupt the flow of the game is crucial for a team that wants to compete with the best. Then there's Sophie Cunningham, a versatile player known for her sharpshooting and defensive acumen. Cunningham's experience in playoff atmospheres makes her an invaluable asset, especially in tight games where every possession counts. And we cannot overlook Danana Bonner, whose veteran savvy and all-around game add an entirely new dimension to Indiana's lineup.
So it's just exciting, but also they're not only really good basketball players, they're really great leaders and really great people. And I know the front office obviously really prioritized that and looking for the pieces that we wanted to add. So really.
Bonner is the kind of player who can match up with almost any opponent, forcing defenses into uncomfortable situations and creating mismatches that the Fever can exploit. Of course, the transformation of a team isn't solely about the players on the floor. It's also about the environment in which they operate, the system, the culture, and the leadership from the sidelines. Stephanie White, the newly appointed head coach, is a master tactician with a proven track record. White's experience in guiding teams through the rigors of playoff basketball means that she's uniquely equipped to meld the diverse skill sets of the roster into a cohesive unit. Having already worked with some of these players in previous stints, she knows how to harness their strengths and mitigate their weaknesses. Her approach is not one of micromanagement, but rather one that empowers players to take ownership of their roles. In doing so, she's building a culture where every individual understands their importance to the collective success of the team. In many ways, what we're witnessing is not just a change in roster, but a fundamental shift in identity. Gone are the days when the Fever were content with being a team that developed young talent. Now, they are a squad with a clear mission: to win championships and to etch their names into WNBA history.
Part of DB joining this team is that she's already played for Steph. So I think that's going to help bridge the gap, because as we go along, we're going to talk about Vegas and Seattle, Atlanta. It's really going to be which team.
This isn't about chasing a fleeting trend or relying on one superstar. It's about creating an ecosystem where talent, leadership, and determination converge. The Fever are now a destination for elite players, a place where the promise of success is not just spoken about, but actively built every day. It's also important to address the criticism that has been lobbed at Indiana from various quarters. There have been voices, most notably from critics like Cheryl Swoops, who argued that real talent would never choose Indiana, painting the team as an overhyped, overreaching project. But look at the narrative now. Free agents are lining up, and players who have spent their careers in more established franchises are being drawn to the Fever's cause. This isn't a case of desperate clinging to an outdated identity. It's a full-scale rebranding. The old stories that painted Indiana as a mere developmental project
White being the head coach of,
Right.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Was the head coach of Connecticut, now the head coach of Indiana.
Yeah. So it's really going to be the team that finds their chemistry. This season is short.
are rapidly being rewritten as the team's success on the court validates every move they've made. When established figures like Sue Bird weigh in with their analysis, it sends a message that the Fever's transformation is not just talk. It's a tangible shift that will have long-lasting implications for the league. Even as the season looms ahead, albeit a shorter one than in previous years, the excitement is palpable. Every game is now seen as an opportunity to solidify the team's newfound identity. Yes, nothing in professional sports is ever guaranteed. No one is handing out championships in February, and every team in the league knows that the road to the title is fraught with challenges. But the Indiana Fever are not approaching this season with blind optimism. They are coming in with a well-laid plan, a blueprint that accounts for every facet of building a championship-caliber team. And it's this comprehensive approach that should have opponents on high alert.
I mean, they're adding games, but it's still pretty short
Still
season.
short, yeah, still short.
And it's
Still
going to
just
be the
summer.
team that finds chemistry. So having Stephanie White there, having already coached DB, really does help.
When you combine the raw talent of a player like Caitlin Clark with the proven leadership of veterans such as Bonner, Howard, and Cunningham, you get a team that isn't just competing, it's dominating.